the New York Knicks just signed Mikal Bridges to a $150 million contract extension, which he gave a little bit money back on. Why? We'll talk a little bit about that. And will the Knicks ultimately regret locking themselves into this core for the next handful of years? We'll talk about it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content today, y'all. Mikal Bridges has signed a 5-year, $150 million contract extension that will keep him in New York theoretically until the 2029-30 season. This is quite a large contract extension. This was reported first by Shams Charania. But you know, he was going into the offseason with one season left on his deal. And it was always kind of expected that the Knicks, after trading all the assets that they gave up for Mikal Bridges, would want to sign him and lock him into a contract extension. But with that said, even at being 28 years old, he's going to be making an annual average salary of about $37.5 million. He does have a 15% trade kicker that would activate as well if the New York Knicks do part with him. Now, he did take slightly less. His max would have been $156 million that he could have got back on that same 4-year contract extension. Keep in mind, Jalen Brunson did something similar in the 2024 offseason as well when he accepted $113 million less to allow New York Knicks some flexibility to build their roster. While Mikal Bridges doesn't give up that much, he does give up enough to help the New York Knicks stay under the second tax apron, which what we know is where a lot of teams sit at. They want to stay beneath that second tax apron. This gives the New York Knicks still $3 million beneath that second tax apron. So theoretically, they may even be able to add, another player at some point in time and trade, take back a little bit more. It keeps them from not being able to aggregate salaries, which is really good for them also. And so it maintains a little bit of flexibility for the New York Knicks. Now, on the flip side of this, while Mikal Bridges came into New York, the stats look good: 17 points per game, 50% shooting from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Mikal Bridges came in and was basically offensively what he was advertised to be. It wasn't the 26 points per game that he averaged in 2022-23 with the Brooklyn Nets. It wasn't that. But at the same time, though, it still, was a nice amount, especially with how that team has as scores and everything around it. But what this does do is it allows the New York Knicks to keep him. Some people thought he didn't bring defensively what we had used to be seeing from him at one point in time, but this locks the New York Knicks in. When you look now, everybody basically of their core. Karl-Anthony Towns has is locked in theoretically into the 2027-28 season, where he does have a player option in that year. But then you look at OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, they're both locked into the end of 2028-29. Same time now where Mikal Bridges' contract runs out as well. When you look at it, the only players that aren't locked in at least till the 2028 season is Josh Hart, who is until 27-28. Mitchell Robinson, who only has 1 year left on his deal as well. And so now the New York Knicks have their core. Basically, Karl-Anthony Towns as well. Forgot about him. His contract, that player option, is at the end of the 2027-28 season. So that kind of lines everybody up, right? For the most part, it has everybody on similar timelines. And now you have that opportunity to kind of focus in on that being your timeline. And because the New York Knicks did stay under the second tax apron, that allows them, for example, if they were to trade Mitchell Robinson and his contract, take a little bit more back on that deal than what they send out. It also allows them to combine players if they want to go after somebody else. So they could still combine Mitchell Robinson's contract with a Miles McBride's contract of $4 million to go out and get a larger player, a larger salary player on top of all of that. So it maintains some flexibility. And I think that's smart for the Knicks because the Knicks didn't make a whole lot of changes to their personnel. They just did not make a whole lot of changes there. And so because of that, they're hoping for better results with a change of coach. And some people, I thought maybe they would be more aggressive about changing other pieces of their roster. But now this could very well indicate that the New York Knicks could, just keep everything the same, maybe evaluate something at the trade deadline to see what they need, to see what they can get out else there. But if the New York Knicks have another disappointing season or two, it also maintains some flexibility there as well. But because they stayed under the second tax apron now, they aren't projected to be under the second tax apron anytime soon unless they start extending more players that have some of those questionable options and things like that on it. So it puts the Knicks in an interesting place because I initially saw this and asked, well, will the Knicks regret this? But because it didn't put them in the second tax apron, there's not as much regret. Now, I will say this, though, right? Because they are flirting right up against that second tax apron, depending on what type of moves they get, it could completely push them over that this season, maybe even next season, depending on how, the contract works out or anything. That remains to be seen, right? But the Knicks are walking a very now tightrope, and they're basically locked into this build of this roster for the most part, unless they make a pretty large trade to then move off of somebody else, right? And so that's really now putting it where the Knicks are. They're going to be locked into this build unless a major kind of restructuring of the roster here comes within the next year or two. They're pretty much locked into it. And maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Now, we know that Tom Thibodeau was released by the New York Knicks, even though I don't think he was all the way at fault for what happened there. But, that's the decision that they decided to make. And so now you have a new head coach coming in here for the New York Knicks, and you're hoping that he's going to be able to get more out of this team than what Tom Thibodeau did. And I'm going to be honest with you. Mike Brown is a perfectly fine head coach. Make no mistake about it. This isn't a knock on Mike Brown, but is he going to raise the ceiling any more than what Tom Thibodeau was able to do? I think for Mike Brown, how he fills out his staff is going to be hugely important in all of this, because he is one of those coaches that when they have a solid staff, of course it helps them. Well, it helps every head coach, but I think a lot of the kind of offensive philosophies and things like that may come from whoever the lead assistant is. And so because of that, you're looking at that to come down to it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. They're still going to definitely be one of the probably top 2-3 teams in the Eastern Conference next year. They're hoping that they're going to have a better winning record against above 500 teams. But this team did go further in the playoffs than what people were expecting based on how their regular season went. So hopefully, I'm sure that they're hoping with the change of coaching staff and kind of another year together, because you made that trade for Karl-Anthony Towns so close to the start of the season, maybe with having some time here now and a season and a playoff run to go with it, that you get better results here coming into year 2 of this build. And they better hope so. This is a tough New York Knicks team, and they weren't tough defensively. I do think they have a different gear that they can go to with the right scheme defensively. But even then, you're going to have to, you got Josh Hart, you got Mikal Bridges, you got OG Anunoby, you got the wings, right? You got that's going down there. You added Yabusele, who I actually really like to come to this team. You're hoping for more health from Karl-Anthony Towns. In some of those moments, you do need that rim protection and more defensive-minded big. But I'm going to tell you this right now. With the Knicks kind of locking themselves into this, I could see them using Mitchell Robinson's expiring contract to try to get something else in here. And especially if their season's going good, if it's something that they really think is going to help them in that Eastern Conference playoff run, but we'll wait and see. They could also just wait it out and let it expire so that they aren't even flirting with that tax deadline next year and kind of break that up to more reasonable contracts. But we'll see what happens here. The question I want to throw to you guys on this one, with the Knicks locking themselves now basically into this build of this roster for at least the rest of this season, again, unless a pretty sizable trade happens, do you think that the Knicks have done enough this offseason to help their standing any much more than how you viewed them last year? Or do you think the change of coaching staff is going to be enough? Maybe more health over the right part of the season. Maybe that's something that also helps them go further than what they did last year. Let me know that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.